Well, hello YouTube, Louis here with another report on the Supreme Court ruling regarding sales tax, the collection of sales tax. This time I'm going to focus specifically on bullion. For those of you that didn't see my previous report, the Supreme Court has ruled that states can collect internet sales tax on online retail purchases. So imagine this is eBay, this is Etsy, this is your online bullion dealer that is a national internet retailer. Anywhere, any state they sell into, for example, if they sell a product into California, California wants to collect its 7 to 9% sales tax on that transaction. The Supreme Court has said that in certain circumstances, most circumstances, California and other sales tax states have the right to claw back those sales taxes from the internet retailer. Of course, I was initially most concerned about eBay. And eBay has a petition that to fight this, which obviously didn't work. I'll show you the eBay statement here quickly. All right, this is the petition that eBay has been asking sellers to sign. It says, please sign our petition to join the fight to protect entrepreneurs, artisans, and small businesses from potentially devastating internet sales tax legislation. Dear President Trump, Congress, and state governors, we, the undersigned, call on the federal and state governments to take the following position on new internet sales taxes and support the millions of small businesses and consumers across the country. Keep the internet as free as a free-form government taxation and regulation as possible. Keep the internet as free from government taxation and regulation as possible. Protect entrepreneurs, small businesses, and artisans from new taxes. Continue to prohibit states and localities from applying and enforcing sales and use tax laws on small, remote local businesses who have no political or voting connection to the taxing state. Reject tax policies that raise prices on consumers who shop online with small businesses for artisan, crafts, religious, vintage, and other niche products because they should not be paying more taxes. Sincerely, on behalf of eBay. All right, now let's go back over to the Supreme Court article. So we know that eBay, for one, is against this new ruling, and they do not want to impose sales taxes on eBay customers, and they do not want to impose the enforcement and the compliance measures on their sellers. As I mentioned in my last report, I would be fearful of having to report sales taxes across the entire country. Now, a very good comment was made by Silver Slacker, and that is somewhat confirmed in the blogs I have read, that it is possible that eBay may create a 50-state reporting mechanism to collect and remit sales taxes on behalf of their sellers. As Amazon did. I don't sell on Amazon, so I wasn't aware of that. And eBay does not do this presently, but theoretically they could create some kind of a reporting mechanism for sales taxes. I don't really understand how they do that without requiring sellers to obtain seller permits, reseller certificates in each of the respective states. I don't know how that works. I certainly couldn't afford to keep a license to sell in all 50 states. That would be ridiculous based on the amount of money I sell. So I don't know if that will solve the problem for eBay. I'll tell you one thing though, it will certainly raise their fees. Amazon is more expensive than eBay, and maybe that will raise eBay fees. There is not much profit in reselling coins and bullion. So I can't imagine paying higher fees on eBay, and I can't imagine that the buyers of these products would pay them either. And B, I can't imagine charging, whatever 3 to 12% sales tax on bullion sales. It would make, it quite a a disadvantageous purchase for most buyers. So, and I was able to see that my thoughts about the retail stocks, they are tumbling based on this news. Let me try to find those charts for you. I was not able to find those charts because my internet connection timed out, but there are significant price declines in Etsy, eBay, Wayfair, and even Amazon that already charges sales tax in something like 40 out of 50 states. So on to the bullion market. And let me just clarify again, if I didn't make it clear, that even if your state doesn't charge sales tax, whether that's Oklahoma or Texas or Nevada, I'm not sure which ones don't, but if a resident of a state like California buys bullion from a substantial retailer in your state, they will have to remit sales tax to the state of California or the state of Illinois or the state of New York. So this will require, I'm pretty sure that this will require online bullion retailers to charge sales tax to residents of states that require it. All right, so for those of us that live in those states, that's a shame for us. Perhaps we will need to take a road trip to Oklahoma or somewhere to avoid these higher taxes on bullion. Others have asked, isn't bullion, for example, aren't American silver eagles exempt from sales tax? And in my state, which is the only one I know well, no, they are not. It is not exempt from sales tax unless you get over a specific value, such as $1,500. That number could be lower in other states. As an aside, the ruling pertained to businesses that sell over $100,000 or 200 transactions. Okay, so the 200 transaction number is familiar. That is the number in which PayPal will send you a 1099 if you sell on eBay or through PayPal. And for them, it is $20,000 or 200 transactions. So you can be tripped up either on the value of $20,000 as it pertains to eBay, or $100,000 as it pertains to this ruling, or on the 20 transactions. So that is literally 20 Beanie Babies can require you to, if you sell more than that, you could be required to collect and remit sales taxes. So will bullion retailers, here is the big question, will internet bullion retailers in the United States, and for that matter in Canada or even other countries, be required to remit sales tax on bullion transactions with residents of other states that charge sales tax? I think it's unequivocally yes. I think that we have just entered the twilight zone. Unless someone can get an injunction, can get an exemption for bullion or coins or other matters, I think we have just entered the twilight zone of taxation. Because what you pay will be dependent completely upon where you live. What this resembles is really like the EU. You notice our friends like Backyard Bullion and such flying to other countries to obtain their large orders, or ordering from Germany instead of England, for example, to avoid value-added tax. This looks a lot like that, but it is far more wild and woolly in my opinion. So, what would you do right now? Okay, this may take a while to roll out. Of course, there needs to be a strong cutoff on when this starts and when this starts, because all the tax accountants will need to figure out how to do this, and all the individuals will have to figure out how to do this. But if you are someone who makes something, if you are someone who pours silver and sells, $20,000, $100,000 a year, which, by the way, wouldn't take much, because the value of the silver is very high, or the gold for that matter. So the profits are really meager, and it requires large transactions in bullion to make a going concern. Somebody like well, certainly Apmex and Provident and Gainesville and all those guys, but perhaps even a Jaeger's Poured Silver. I don't know if he charges sales tax. Matter of fact, I don't think he does. So he certainly crosses that $100,000 mark and 20 transactions. So did Jaegersport Silver just become more expensive to anybody in a sales tax state? Um, the other worrisome part of this is, the cost of compliance for an AppMix or a Provident. It's going to raise the price of bullion. It just has to. And what I can't really figure out, and what I'm curious, what do you think, is the bullion in our stack, for those of us that have substantial stacks, is it now more valuable because to replace it will require paying an internet sales tax for many of us? Or is it less valuable because the price of silver will now be discounted by the 8% or so required to make the purchase? I really can't answer that. That's more of a philosophical, and that's something for us to ferret out in our own minds, how human nature will work on this. In the UK, for example, they have completely accepted the fact that their silver is more expensive than ours here in the US. Same in Canada, I think. A lot of that has to do with currency exchange, but a lot of that has to do with VAT as well. Have we also created a scenario where people will be traveling across state borders to make purchases, having friends purchase for them, kind of like cigarettes, right? I mean, how many of you that smoke are now going to Indian reservations and low tax states? If you live in New York or California, how many of you are driving across the border to buy a carton of cigarettes? I'll be curious about that. So is this the same thing? Have we pushed the whole bullion market underground by doing this? What about your collectible coins? If the resellers on eBay, which is, I believe, the largest reselling marketplace for previously issued coins, collector coins, and even old ingots and so forth, if nobody wants to sell on eBay anymore, how are you going to buy? And more importantly, how are you going to sell your collectible coins when the time comes without adding an enormous surcharge to the transaction? And if people can buy it less in a state that doesn't charge sales tax, isn't that exactly the same dynamic that brick and mortar retailers are complaining about now? That it's not fair. So it's also not fair if somebody is trying to sell online, and they live one place, and in another place they're trying to sell online, and the prices are totally different depending on where they sell from. So I'm not sure where this is all headed. Hopefully there will be an injunction of some kind and clarification for small artisans. But for those for those that just can't keep up with these, I think a lot of people will just stop selling. Yeah, for fear of being audited, right? How would you like to be audited by the IRS or the Franchise Tax Board in your state? Again, if you'd like to report down below, and more importantly, I think we should all call all the big bullion retailers and ask them what their position is on this and when they might be instituting taxation for their companies. Or will this be the straw that breaks the camel's back, and we'll see all of the retailers that are already going broke just pack it in? What do you think will happen? This is highly, highly problematic for bullion and coin collectors, in my opinion. But what do you think? Thanks, everybody.